Gorth, hello everyone. Today we will continue What If Izuku Was Expelled from US, so let's begin. Third POV. The summer training at Shiksu High School has finally started as Izuku had returned a few days after the incident on Island. The media was abuzz once again that All Might and his protege had saved the day once again, and they were all talking about how the villains were defeated. Though, none of them, including the UA students, knew how dangerous that day was, because if Wolfram had escaped, then they would have all been doomed. This is due to the fact that All for One would have gotten his hands on the device, and neither All Might nor Izuku was confident that they could beat the man if he had that device. They decided it was better to just return early instead of staying, since nothing would be going on for the remaining days of the island trip, since the island needed to fix all of their security and change anything in the event a villain tried to use the old codes again to break in. They also needed to deal with the fallout of David Shields' assistant betraying the island, which was a hot mess for them to deal with. David came out clean with the authorities of the island, since he admitted he had similar thoughts but had abandoned them since he came to agree with the island's decision to lock the device away for the exact reason Wolfram proved. The device was a weapon that could kill many in the hands of evil people. As such, David Shield was cleared of any wrongdoing but had agreed to be monitored for the island's peace of mind. Anyway, the few weeks of the specialized training started, and Izuku decided to take the classes focused on strategy and applying it in combat, since Izuku knew that times would be shifting greatly soon. Izuku wanted to be able to control an entire battlefield through tactics of war and be able to save as many people as he could. As such, he wanted to ensure he was able to apply battle tactics to his fighting and be able to lead an overall war front if need be. Izuku knew he felt pretty good in his rescue work, so he didn't need to spend a lot of time on that, and he knew he would get more quirk training and overall training from Gran Torino outside of the specialized classes, so the strategy and combat specialized combat classes were the best fit for him, and Izuku could also apply his notebooks better in this section as well. Inasa decided to take the classes that specialized in indoor combat, since his quirk was better fitted for the outdoor combat. As such, he wanted to get more training to help himself be better trained indoors. Inasa still joined Izuku in his training that he did with Gran Torino, since it would help make him stronger, since he as well knew that the calm before the storm was about to come to an end. As such, both of them worked hard and didn't let up in any of their training. Now, the class was downright shocked at what they saw when about a week into the training one day they all decided to check out what type of training Inasa and Izuku do when they go after specialized classes and everything. So they decided to have their homeroom teacher take them to the training ground area where they would be training, and they were quite disturbed with what they found and saw. They could see Inasa wearing several pounds of weight attached to him via some chairs as he was lifting himself into the air. This was according to Gran Torino to strengthen his body and quirk ability to generate a wind strong enough to lift more weight. However, that wasn't the most disturbing thing they saw. No. The most disturbing thing they saw was Izuku fucking Midoriya lifting a goddamn train cars. The thing about train cars is that they weigh different weights depending on what they are used for, and the one he was lifting easily weighed around 60 tons. The entire class and even the homeroom teacher were wondering why they were pushing themselves so hard. The homeroom teacher had a small idea due to All Might's state, but he had zero clues about One for All and All for One. As such, the homeroom teacher was really concerned about why his two top students who already had their provisional licenses were pushing so hard and were afraid of what it meant. He decided to call the principal and asked him if he approved such training, and the only response he got was to leave it in the hands of Gran Torino, since he knew the situation for them. As such, the homeroom teacher of One could only watch in shock as they pushed themselves so hard. After they finished training that day, one student from their class had gotten the courage and asked them the question of why. Izuku and Inasa, why are you pushing so hard when we have several more years before we graduate? Asked their classmate, and Izuku tensed, which they all noticed before he sighed. Because Japan is about to fall into a state of war soon. Izuku stated, not hiding the truth from his classmates, that he has come close to and saw as friends. They were all confused, but Inasa just nodded his head as if he knew the truth, which he did. Someone asked him to explain what he meant by war. In Japan, there are many forces that are just waiting for my master's All Might's retirement, and I hate to say it, but my master will retire either this year or next. The moment he does will be the opening of the floodgate, and crime will rise at a steady pace. There are dark forces that will seek to gain control of Japan during his retirement, and it will fall onto our generation to stop them. I want to be prepared as best as I can, because I can tell you right now our generation will be filled with blood and death. As heroes, we are going to be blamed for every single death that we fail to stop, and it won't be easy, so I want to be prepared to save as many people as I can, Izuku said as he sat down and started to drink some water after he explained what he meant to his class. Everyone was honestly shocked to hear what he meant and thought about it. They had to agree. Crime rate was so low due to All Might keeping a lot of crime away and installing fear into lower villains, but the moment he is gone, those hidden organizations will start to make their moves in the public light since they don't have to fear him anymore. That all got them a bit scared but also motivated to work harder in their training, and they asked Gran Torino to increase the difficulty of their class lessons when school started back up again, and the old man grinned and nodded his head. Soon they all left and Gran Torino looked at Izuku and asked, "Why did he tell them?" "Not that I think you were wrong, but I am wondering why you told them," Gran Torino asked, and Izuku looked at him. "Because everyone is lifting with blinders on their eyes currently and aren't seeing what is about to happen. Dear God. All Might has been scaling back his operations for years and no one really noticed at all, but now at least there will be some preparation for it. It won't make a difference on a large scale, but hopefully it can help stall some of the destruction that will come," Izuku stated, and Gran Torino nodded his head in agreement with Izuku's point. He agreed with Izuku in all honesty, and even with them mentioning All Might's retirement in the news, no one really paid attention for a long period of time. It did help people start preparing for it, but it became an afterthought as everyone thought they would still have years to prepare when in truth they might only have a year or less depending on when All for One makes his moves. Soon they got back to work and contained this training for another week as the Shiketsu High School summer training came to an end. Izuku Midoriya had pushed his control up to 50%, and he was proud of what he had achieved in so little time thanks to the hellish training he has been receiving from Gran Torino. But on the last day of the training they received the horrible news that shook them all. All for One had made his move, and the calm before the storm had come to an end as the world would bear witness to a fight between two titans. While the summer training camp at Shiketsu High School had recently kicked, UA High School's first day of their summer camp would also be starting. However, not everyone is 100% thrilled since several people failed their exams, which resulted in them learning that they will have to take remedial classes during the summer camp on top of all of the training that will be going on, which sucked for them. None of the staff or students were told of the campus location, and the staff only learned of it on the day of the camp trip since Nezu had taken care of all arrangements. As such, Nezu thereby limited the possibility of them all being the students or the two staff people that would be going from UA. Nezu truly hoped none of his staff or students were betraying the school and kind of hoped that the league was just using the warp user to spy on the school movements and steal anything they needed information-wise, otherwise it would be a huge stain on UA's history to have a mole in their ranks. Nezu already knew one student from Wano was cleared due to the mall incident, as the detective under Izuku's direction was able to question the student and clear them. As such, Hitoshi Shinso was cleared of any involvement with the League of Villains. That just left 39 other students in the first-year hero class and all of the teachers. Anyway, back with the students of UA as they arrived at the camp location, or they thought they did, as they stopped on the side of the road. As they all got out and stretched, another car came and parked next to their bus. They all looked at it and saw it was the Wild Pussycats. Eraserhead told them that they would be helping in their training, and right after he said that, one of them collapsed part of the cliff, and the students went falling down into the forest, where they were met with beasts made of dirt that they were forced to fight to make it back to the camp. If they didn't make it back in a few hours, then they would need to make their own food, and sadly for them they never made it back in time and had to make their own food. As such, you could find them all working on creating themselves dinner. Surprisingly, even Bakugo was helping, as he would call all of them shitty cooks, as a few of them just destroyed whatever they were making, so he decided he didn't want to starve to death and forced them to just let him cook. As all of this was going on, Kota, the nephew of the Pussycats, was glaring at the hero students, but not for the reason you would think. No. He got rid of his hatred for heroes. Instead, he just didn't like 1A's teacher and 1A. Though his guardians didn't know that he no longer hated heroes, since they didn't know he has had several encounters with the provisional hero Halo. Izuku had told Kota about his life before he obtained a quirk and what he aimed to do as a hero, and Kota ended up bonding with Izuku over it. Kota had gotten lost from his guardians one day when they had taken him with them on a research case, but he had run into Izuku, who was out on his patrol. Izuku, believing it was a hero's job to even help little children who were just down, decided to stop and spend time with Kota. They talked for quite a while, and Izuku ended up agreeing with Kota that he had the right to be angry at everyone who said he should be proud of his parents dying for what they did. It was okay for him to be proud that they were heroes and did their jobs, but to be proud that they are dead because they died while in the line of duty wasn't something people should have told Kota or anyone. As such, they bonded, and after a while, they started to hear Kota's name being called as his guardians were looking around for him. Izuku gave Kota his cell phone number and told him to call or text if he wanted to talk, and they have been in contact for a while now, which has helped Kota grow out of his hatred for heroes. But he did know about Bakugo, Katsuki, and Eraserhead and what they have done to his favorite hero. As such, far as his guardians knew, he still hated heroes, but that wasn't actually true anymore. Anyway, Outside of Kota glaring of the heroes, the students of one all ended up in the hot springs to relax since the following days would be filled with hard training of their quirks, though if Izuku was there he would honestly laugh since what they all considered harsh wouldn't even reach level of harshness that a light day would be like with Gran Torino in Izuku's book. Gran Torino came from a time that was more brutal in their training and was more brutal in battles against villains, and it was exactly what Izuku and his class wanted because they knew the war was coming and they didn't want to be treated with kid gloves in training. Back to one of UA though. As they were all sitting in the hot springs enjoying a relaxing time, the resident pervert decided to attempt to climb the walls and peek at the girls, but was met by Kota, who kicked the pervert down the wall but fell himself when he accidentally saw into the girl's side. Before he could hit the floor below though, he was caught by Hitoshi, who took him to his guardian. Hitoshi asked why he glares so much at them, and they explained his hatred of heroes, and Hitoshi nodded his head at what he was told. Soon he returned to the baths and relaxed as he thought about Kota's situation, unaware that the information he received was outdated. Soon the night turned to day, and their second day of camp began, and they all were gathered in the field where Eraserhead made Bakugo do the ball test from the start of the year once again. Everyone thought it would be a higher distance, but it hardly changed at all. As you can see, we spent a semester training all of your other aspects of being a hero, but we didn't expand your quirks much at all. Quirks are muscle, and the more you use them, the stronger they became. That is the focus of this summer camp, as we will be training your quirk muscles, Eraserhead said, and Kota was watching a bit away and snorted. If you wanted to train quirks so badly, then why didn't you help your former student Eraserhead? Kota thought about how Halo was expelled from UA due to only receiving his quirk a few months before the first day of school and not having time to really train it. Kota firmly believed, just like Izuku Midoriya, that Eraserhead was quirkist and had discriminated against Izuku because he was quirkless for so long, because otherwise it meant Eraserhead was just purely lazy and didn't want to help a student learn to control their quirk, even though they had passed the same exam that Eraserhead had failed to pass. The UA students spent most of the day doing their training as 1B arrived with their teacher Vlad King. The 1B students were just arriving and saw all of the 1A class members doing their training and thought they were a bit crazy, but got fired up when their teacher hyped them up, saying that it was their time to finally shine in the spotlight instead of the 1A class members. However, unknown to all of them, the camp was about to take a dark turn that night as the League of Villains was prepared to attack with their newer members. The night was quickly approaching, and standing on a mountainside in the distance were the members of the Vanguard Action Squad from the League of Members. These members had all joined the League due to how powerful they had been and were wanting to take a hit at the Hero Society for various reasons. Soon as the night got darker, they set their plan into action as they split across the forest once the students entered it for a game of scaring each other. They also had a kill list, but in reality, they were there to capture a student from UA and attempt to recruit them to become a villain, as they believed they were truly made to become a villain instead of a hero. Ironically, if they knew of what Bakugo Katsuki has done, then there was a good chance they might not even want him themselves, because quite a few members of the League now came from pasts filled with abusers, and Bakugo Katsuki was one thing more than anything: he was an abuser. Soon the night peace was torn and the forest was ablaze as everyone was confused about what was happening, until they heard a voice in their head that they recognized was from one of the pro heroes in the Pussycat. They were told that the camp was under attack from villains and that they were to retreat to the lodge as quickly as possible, but unluckily for a lot of them, they would never make it to the lodge without risking their lives, as the night turned into chaos and they all got a taste of what the future would hold for them all, as everyone was fighting throughout the forest. Several villains were aiming at one student in particular. They were aiming for Bakugo Katsuki, who they believed would be a perfect fit to join the League of Villains, though it was only based on his attitude and aggressiveness that he has displayed from the USJ and the sports festival, since the League didn't even know about all of the crimes he has committed due to them being covered up while they were hunting Bakugo down. Another villain that goes by the name of Muscular was making his move and was about to kill the small child named Kota, but luckily for him, fate had other plans, as Shinso had arrived in time. Shinso yelled out and the villain responded with a ha, which ended up getting him trapped inside of the brainwashing quirk. "Kid, come with me and let's get out of here," Shinso said as he was having some trouble keeping the villain under his control. "God damn it, all of the training today has pushed me past my limits and I am struggling to keep him under control," Shinso thought as he grabbed Kota and ran away. Soon they got far away before they heard the villain scream, but luckily for them, they were already far away so they wouldn't get found, but unluckily for one UA student, Bakugo Katsuki, he didn't get away from the villains that were after him. No. Sadly for him, he was captured by the villain known as Mr. Compressor as he trapped him into marble and started to run away, as Bakugo's so-called friends started to chase after the villain to get him back. They chased the villain down to an area with another villain called Dabai, who was responsible for the fires across the forest. Give us Bakuabro back, Kirishima yelled out, and Dabai chuckled, but an attack came from one of T1 class members, knocking the marbles out of their hands. They grabbed them and found that Takayomiya was in one of the marbles, but Bakugo wasn't in the other one. Looking for this? Mr. Compressor asked as he stuck his tongue out and showed the marble. Everyone was stunned as Dabai took the marble, and out came Bakugo as Dabai pressed his hand around his neck and pulled him into a purple portal as they all fell back. Kirishima yelled out for Bakugo, but they were too late as he went through the portal and was taken away. Bakugo Katsuki had been captured by the League of Villains, and this would be a large hit towards UAS and the hero's reputation. It has been several hours since the training camp of UA had been attacked, and the incident was completely spread across the news. The students of the Shiksu High School of Wana were sitting in their dorm common rooms as Izuku was watching the TV. He sighed as he watched it and spoke. Everyone, the war has started. This will result in a battle between my master and the hidden leader of the League of Villains, and how the battle ends will decide the overall time limit before the entire situation erupts to complete chaos. Izuku stated as he watched the news, and they asked what was All Might's odds of winning the battle, since Izuku has given them some hints that the leader hidden in the shadows behind the League of Villains was very powerful. Izuku looked around the room and thought about it, and he honestly didn't know if his master, his father, would walk away from it alive. None of them liked how long he was silent, and it spoke volumes without even a sound being made. To be honest, it's too close to call on who will win or not win. That is how problematic this entire situation is. If All Might dies and the man lives, then Japan will directly enter a state of chaos. If he is defeated and All Might walks away, then we will have a bit longer time, but the chaos will start slowly growing before exploding, since I believe this will be my master's final fight. All Might likely won't be able to continue as a pro hero anymore after this final fight, Izuku stated, preparing his classmates for the coming battle, and they all paled a bit in understanding. They all nodded their head, and Izuku left soon to call his father and ask him something. As Izuku sat in his dorm room and made the call, he was just sitting there watching the news on his TV. Hello, son. I can assume why you are calling, All Might said, and Izuku said he likely did know why, but still he wanted to ask. Dad, please let me fight by your side. I don't want to watch on the sidelines as you fight him. If it turns on us, then Gran Torino can force me to retreat. Please, don't make me stand on the side and watch your possible death, Izuku begged, and the line was silent. Izuku sat there and waited for his father to say something, but he didn't for a while. It felt agonizing to sit there in silence, but soon All Might spoke up. Get Gran Torino's approval and your mother's. If they both approve, then you can come, but the moment Gran Torino thinks you need to leave, then he is taking you and leaving. Do you understand? All Might said in a tense tone, and Izuku nodded his head. After the call ended, Izuku headed down to find Gran Torino, who was located in the common room area. Gran Torino looked at Izuku, whose eyes were a bit puffy, and asked what was wrong. Izuku looked at him and spoke, and Gran Torino had a look of shock. All Might said, I need your and mom's approval. If you two approve, then he will let me join him in the fight, Izuku stated, and you could see how wide Gran Torino's eyes were wide. The old man was stunned in silence before he soon came out of his shock and looked at Izuku's in the eyes. You do realize you're asking to go to your potential death. You only have 50% of your quirk under control right now, only halfway to 100%. Why should I give you permission to go fight the demon at your current state? Gran Torino asked, because if Izuku had a weak reason, then it wasn't going to happen, even if Izuku hated Gran Torino for the rest of his life. Gran Torino wasn't going to let Izuku go to an early grave easily. Everyone in the room was shocked at Izuku's request and looked at the encounter before them, because adding my 50% on top of All Might's powers could make the smallest difference that might change the entire battle. I agreed with All Might's demand that if you ever thought the battle turned too far south, then you would remove me from the fight. I don't want to stand on the sidelines and watch his possible death. Not when even the tiniest ounce of my strength could tip the battle in our favor, Izuku stated as his eyes were filled with determination. Gran Torino sighed and walked up to Izuku and told him that they better go call his mother and get her approval for this. Inasa wanted to go as well since he had his provisional license, but Gran Torino shot it down. Sorry kid, but I am already going to have my hands filled with this brat in the middle of the battle. The man we are going against. Your quirk will be ill-suited to go against him, since he could easily flick away with just his hand. That is how fearsome he is going to be, and it's a huge-ass risk to even take Izuku on the battlefield, since the man will try to kill him if given the chance, since he is still a bit weaker than I would hope when I thought this day would happen, Gran Torino stated, and Inasa gritted his teeth, and Izuku thanked him for the thoughts of coming. Inasa sat down and nodded his head as Gran Torino said that even if he wanted to approve it, it was doubtful his work-study sponsor would likely approve it, since he works under them and had the power to stop it, and Inasa knew they were right. Soon, Izuku and Gran Torino were up in Izuku's dorm room calling in Midoriya. Hello sweetie, I saw the news. The battle is going to happen soon, isn't it? She asked right out of the gate. Yeah, that is actually why I called you mom, Izuku said, and she asked what was wrong. Mom, I asked All Might to let me join him in the battle to help try to turn the odds of us winning. He's approved of it, but only if Gran Torino and you both approve. Gran Torino has given his approval, and it all comes with me agreeing to leave when Gran Torino attempts to pull me off the battlefield if he thinks the situation turns into one we can't win, Izuku said, and Inko Midoriya was silent, but then you could hear her crying. Izuku asked her if she was alright, and she responded with no because her son was asking to go to his potential death. Sorry, mother. I know this is cruel of me. I just can't watch dad possibly die when I know I might have the slightest chance of changing the battle for the better, Izuku said, and she knew it was true as well. I know, sweetie. I know. I don't like that you are going, but I know this is the path you choose. Just promise me you will leave if it looks like you have no chance of winning. If you survive, then a day will come when you can beat him, but if you die now, then that day will never come, Inko said as she held so many tears back on the other side of the phone as she sat on her couch and watched the news talking about the camp attack. She didn't wish ill will on anyone, but she found it ironic that Bakugo got captured by the villain organization for what people are assuming to recruit him. The irony of it all is so funny to her for what he has done, and no one really knows about it. Soon the conversation came to an end, and it was agreed that Izuku would be joining the raid team with All Might. Izuku said he would be heading down towards UA in the coming hours with Gran Torino once he did a few things at the school. Inko told him to be safe as possible and to trust Gran Torino to know when it's time to leave if the situation is unwinnable anymore, and Izuku agreed. As such, Izuku got to work as he grabbed his outfit and some clothing for a few days, since he wouldn't be returning to Shiketsu at least for a few days, since the raid wouldn't happen likely until the next night or the day after, since they would need to do some scouting before they attacked and planned things out. Izuku had asked Inasa to come to the dorm, and when he was in there, Izuku presented something to him. Even Gran Torino was shocked but understood, since what they were doing was risky. Inasa, from what I understand of One for All, I don't need to be physically present to give One for All away. I've stored some hair in this baggie in the event I am on death's door. I am sure the raid will be televised, so if you see me on death's door or just got killed, then consume the hair and become the 10th user of One for All. Please, I trust you since you know everything about the quirk and you are my best friend, Izuku stated, and Inasa was stunned but gritted his teeth and agreed. Before Izuku left, Inasa called out to him, Izuku, you better not die because I refuse to take your quirk. I will hold hatred for you if you dare die this early in life, because we promised each other we would become heroes together, so you better not break that promise and force this on me, Inasa said with a determined tone, and Izuku smiled at his best friend and said he wouldn't be rid of him that easy. Soon, Izuku walked out the door with Gran Torino, and they informed the principal of him joining All Might before they left the campus. Soon, Gran Torino and Izuku were both on the train heading towards UA as All Might would be there. Izuku was already wearing his outfit, since not a lot of people were outside at that time of night or in their homes watching the news about the recent attack. Now, while they were doing this and thinking of what was going to come, some students of UA were making a crazy plan to save their classmate Bakugo Katsuki. The main individuals leading the rescue attempt were Krisimiya, who was convincing people to join it, and he had successfully gotten Todoroki, Eda, and Yoarazu to join in the attempt to go save Bakugo. Ida and Yoarazu were going because they didn't want the others to commit a crime and get in trouble, and Todoroki was going for unknown reasons, and all honestly, as it was as if he was going with the flow and was doing it to rebel against his father, since it would surely piss the man off. Soon Izuku and Gran Torino both arrived in the area around UA and headed off towards the school. They saw the front gate filled with reporters and people asking what the heroes were planning to do about the captured student, and it was currently learning the morning of the next day when the two of them arrived. They both decided to go to the side entrance and go in via the entrance, since Gran Torino had a keycard to swipe to get in that Nezu gave him a while ago. As such, they both avoided the press and were able to enter the building as they made their way to the staff room, which All Might said they were all currently. Gran Torino just shoved the door open and shocked all of the UA hero staff that was standing in the office, and Izuku had to resist the urge to laugh. They all looked at Gran Torino before Izuku walked in, and they were shocked to see the protege of All Might, as they knew he didn't attend the school, which was actually a heated topic one day, since they all wanted to try to figure who he was, but none of their students had their hero name listed on the files, which proved he didn't go to UA. Gran Torino and Halo, I am so glad you could join us for the raid that will be going on tonight. I will have you both placed with All Might in the event he appears, Nezu stated, and they both nodded their heads. Izuku withheld from using his voice since the staff might recognize him if they had a good memory. Nezu asked All Might, Gran Torino, and Halo to join him in his office. As such, they left it and were soon in his office, where Izuku removed his mouth guard so he could drink some tea and speak easier. How is everything with you, Nezu? Izuku asked as they sat down, and Nezu looked at him as if that was a dumb question considering everything that is going on, and Izuku just chuckled a bit. I mean, outside of the sky falling around UA. Izuku rephrased, and Nezu sighed. It could be better. I've been meaning to have the conversation with Eraserhead about his expulsion regarding you and the quirkist bias he had shown you that day, since I doubt he read your file before expelling and didn't read it after you left, since he never came to me about it. Besides that, I've been trying to figure a way to punish Bakugo for all of the things he has done and was planning to force him into therapy and anger management while putting a large number of black marks on his future hero license, which would show the crimes he committed but not against who, but the recent kidnapping has made that troublesome, Nezu said, and Izuku nodded his head in understanding. Nezu, in all honesty, has been wanting to wash his hands of Bakugo since he didn't want a new endeavor going through his doors, but at the rate things have been happening, it would complicate matters if he expelled him right after being kidnapped, since the League has shown an interest in him. Nezu explained that he was looking into having a case made and sealed on his record while forcing a large number of punishments on him, but again, if it ever got out, then UA would take a hit for even accepting him in the first place and keeping him around. Izuku just told Nezu to do as he sees fit, since Izuku's entire class at Shiketsu knew of Bakugo's crimes, so one day it was likely going to get out regardless of what Bakugo wants, and it would be better for UA to deal with it in some way before ever leaks from another source, since all of Izuku's class hates Bakugo. Nezu nodded his head and said that he would see if he could get something done sometime when classes start back up in the second semester. Soon, they moved on from those topics and talked about what would be going on during the raid on the bar in the second location that they have found recently via the tracker one of students had placed. Nezu explained that all three of them would be going to the bar since that is where they believe Bakugo was being held, and they would try to secure Bakugo first before dealing with All for One. Overall, Bakugo is the top target, and then after that is dealing with All for One. We don't know if he is at either of these locations, but we need to be thinking he likely will be, in all honesty, Nezu stated, and they all nodded their head in understanding. I really wish this could have happened closer to the end of the first year, since I would have likely been able to get nearly 100% at the rate I was going. Our chances of winning would be far higher than, Izuku said as he drank the tea, and everyone had to agree that they could only wish that the League had delayed their plans for one more semester, since it would have made a large difference, but they couldn't complain now. Instead, it was getting closer and closer to time for the raid to happen. They all decided it would be good for them to just relax, since the other heroes were still being gathered up for the riot that night, and it wouldn't do anyone any good if they all stressed out. As such, Nezu returned to the staff room where Aizawa and the other staff asked why Halo was joining the raid since he was only a provisional hero. Nezu looked at them all and spoke. Because he is far stronger than most pro heroes that will actually be on the raids itself, and it's my personal belief that he is the closest person to being the next #1 hero after he graduates. We also need the firepower, and he can without a doubt provide it. As such, he will be joining the raid under All Might, Principal Nezu stated, and that left them a bit confused on how strong Halo was, because they all thought he was a second-year student and not a first-year student with his provisional license, which is a huge difference. Everyone, including the public, started to believe recently that Halo had just started his work study with All Might during the internship week, since UA had that week off, which would allow All Might to directly train said work study student. However, they were all wrong in that thinking, and Izuku was in fact a first-year student who had defeated even the third-year students at Shiketsu High School, but Nezu wasn't going to tell them that. Not when he could have a bit of fun with it and wait for the perfect moment when they discovered how bad Eraserhead had screwed up in expelling Halo from UA. It was at that moment when Nezu would decide to have his long and overdue conversation with Eraserhead about his screw-up. Now, outside of all that, All Might and Izuku were both sitting in a conference room together and just enjoying each other's company, as this might be the last time they would see each other, since there was a good chance of death on this mission. Dad, promise me that you won't give in to Sir Night-Eye's stupid vision, since I refuse to believe his quirk sees the actual future and only a possibility, because in his vision did he ever say anything about me? Because if he saw me, then he shouldn't have been trying to get you to pass the quirk on to someone else if there was already someone fated to become the 9th user according to his visions, Izuku stated, and at that statement, both Gran Torino and All Might eyes widened as they realized Sir Night-Eye never said anything about Izuku Midori or Halo being the 9th user, which meant he either didn't know or they were already in a timeline that differed from what he saw. No, he never did mention you or me having picked the 9th user in his vision. He only talked about my death and that it was gruesome, All Might said, and Izuku nodded his head and pointed out that dying at the hands of the Namu at the USJ would have been gruesome, but yet it didn't happen, and for all they knew, the time had already passed and they wouldn't know unless Sir Night-Eye looked again, which they all knew he wouldn't do. All Might started to laugh and promised Izuku that he wouldn't die to All for One and would push forward for him. That made Izuku smile, and soon he fell asleep since he was tired from the train ride to UA. Gran Torino looked at All Might and Izuku sitting there on the couch and smiled. Nana would be proud of what you've accomplished. Remember that, and don't let that man get inside of your head, because he is good at that with his words, because it makes you reckless, Gran Torino told All Might, who nodded his head. Soon the time passed and it was finally nighttime again, and it was time for the raid to start happening. All Might had Izuku get up and they all got ready and headed off to where they were instructed to meet the other heroes. It was time for the Battle of Titans and for the world to rumble at their blows. Izuku, Midoriya, Gran Torino, and All Might were all standing outside the bar location of the League of Villains and were about to break in. Earlier, before they arrived, Izuku had to deal with Endeavor's stupid complaining about a student being on the raid, but Endeavor was just ignored by everyone since they have seen what the hero of Resilience, Halo, could do, as Izuku has been making waves during his patrols out of the Might Agency. The general public loved him, and it was suspected that if he was included in the official ranks he would already be in the top 50. Now, outside of that, the heroes had split into teams between the locations, and All Might was given the green light to start the operation as he knocked on the door and said Camino Pizza Delivery. Right after he said that line, he broke the wall down. And there stood all of the heroes as they looked into the bar and saw Shigaraki with his League of Villains. They also saw Bakugo Katsuki standing up in a position that looked like he was about to fight the League members. Within moments, Kamui Woods had everyone contained in his woods as they struggled to get free. Dabai looked ready to burn the wood, but Gran Torino quickly attacked and knocked Dabai out cold so he wouldn't be able to break them free. "You killed him," twice yelled out, but Gran Torino snorted. "No, he's still alive but just out cold," Gran Torino said, and twice calmed down. Shigaraki looked annoyed, but he had his eyes on one person, and it wasn't the person you would think. He was looking not at All Might but at Halo. "It's been a while, Halo. I wish we could stay and fight our battle out, but it's time for our masters to come to blows and not you and me." With that said, Kurogiri released the Namu, Shigaraki said, but nothing happened as Kurogiri looked at him. "There are no Namu in their positions. They already took them out," Kurogiri said, but then got knocked out by Ed's shot, which the members thought he was dead, but again he was just out cold. As such, 2 of the League members were out cold now, and Shigaraki looked pissed. "How dare you take out my Namu and knock my men out?" he yelled out, and All Might just let out his common laugh. "Ahahahahah. It's over now. Why? Because we are here. Now, Shigaraki, where is your master?" All Might asked, and Shigaraki just laughed and called out for his master to lend him his power, and in the next moment, before anyone, there was black sludge coming out of the mouths of the League members and as well as Bakugo Katsuki as they all got teleported away. However, that wasn't the only thing that was teleported. No, Namu started to appear out of the sludge as well and were fighting all of the hero and police on site. Endeavor just yelled at All Might to leave already if he was going to leave, and he did just that as he jumped away with Gran Torino and Halo following right behind him, though he put distance in between them due to how much faster he was than Gran Torino and Izuku at the time. Now, while that all happened, a half an hour before the raid started and they would attempt the rescue, there were students of UA heading towards the beacon location that their classmate had provided to the heroes and police. They were making their way through the streets in disguise that they had decided to get at a thrift store so that they wouldn't be recognized. After they had finished that, they were almost to their goal when they heard someone say they were from UA. However, it wasn't them that was being talked about, but the principal, Vlad King, and their homeroom teacher Eraserhead that was currently doing an interview with the press. The press was asking all different sorts of questions, and one press individual asked if Bakugo Katsuki had a place in the hero course since he has shown so many tendencies of being a villain. The class was shocked at what they heard, but then were amazed when their teacher Eraserhead stood up and defended Bakugo Katsuki. "Any failing of my student is my responsibility for not correcting him. Bakugo Katsuki has an amazing drive to be a hero, and that does make him come off as too aggressive. But I believe he can still become a hero," Eraserhead said, and unknowing to him there are many people that disagreed with him, and one was his own employer who was pissed at what Eraserhead had just done. Eraserhead had just tied UA's reputation to Bakugo Katsuki, and Nezu was pissed since this tied his hands on taking much harsher punishments against Bakugo, because if he wanted to then he would really need to punish Eraserhead as well. Though Nezu knew some of it was his fault for keeping Eraserhead out of the loop currently, but could you blame the principal when he was also a part of the issue itself when he expelled Izuku Midori? Moving forward, the press conference had come to an end and the raid on the League of Villains had started. The 3 UA staff moved to a different room and Nezu looked at Eraserhead and spoke with a pissed tone. "You shouldn't have done that. You now tied UA's fate to an unstable student who I had plans to get rid of most likely," Nezu said, and Eraserhead was shocked and asked why would they get rid of Bakugo Katsuki since he hasn't done too much to get expelled yet and still had potential. Nezu just laughed and spoke once again. "Eraserhead, it seems your definition of potential has become quite fucked up this year now, hasn't it? You don't realize that you have screwed this school due to your definition of potential so many times this year. Moving forward, you are no longer allowed to expel students without my strict approval. As such, don't even use it as a threat unless they do something really stupid, because I can't trust your judgment in those matters anymore. Moving forward, you will also be attending classes that deal with quirkish behaviors because you have repeatedly displayed them, and I am honestly shocked by you doing that. I will figure out what else I want to do with you, because right now your job is hanging on by a thread, since if I want to get rid of Bakugo, I most likely need to fire you because of your statement out there, since you tied UAS reputation to that villainous boy, since you have zero ideas of all of the crimes he's committed. Oh wait. You have a good idea since he's shown the behavior in front of you, but you've waved it off like they were nothing, Principal Nezu said in his pissed tone, and both of the teachers were shocked at what they heard. They were downright confused on what sparked this and what Eraserhead had done that was deemed quirkish. Eraserhead was shocked for him of all people to be accused of being a quirkist, and wondered what crimes his boss was talking about that Bakugo has done. What are you talking about? He asked, and Nezu just smiled, but it wasn't his normal smile. No, it was the one that promised agony. Oh, my foolish employee. Why ruin the fun? No, you need to find the answer yourself, because when you do, you will release everything on your own. I will give you a hint though. It ties back into a student you have met before, Nezu said as he walked away deeper into the room they had entered, as he ignored Eraserhead since he was so pissed with the man. Vlad King and Eraserhead just stood there though in silence, but moving forward. Eraserhead though was consumed with his thoughts and was trying to figure out what he had done that would be considered quirkish and what all crimes of Bakugo he waved off, but it would be some time before he even got the answer he sought, and when it happened he would be devastated by his actions. Now back to the raid itself, as they all watched it live on the news cameras that were recording. All Might had just arrived at the site where the warehouse was because they had lost contact with the raid team over there. It appeared that All for One had wiped them all out with one devastating blow, but Best Jeanist was able to keep them all alive in the last moments, but it didn't stop the devastation that happened. As All Might arrived, he yelled out All for One's name, and the man himself blocked All Might's attack with some ease. "Here to kill me again, All Might?" All for One asked with an amused tone. Bakugo and the villains were all blown back a bit due to the shockwave of the attacks, but All Might couldn't get Bakugo due to All for One stopping him. All for One used a forced activation quirk on Kurogirio's knocked out form and told them to take Bakugo and leave. Shigaraki wanted to object and stay, but his master ordered him away. However, before the villains could take Bakugo away, the rising star Halo arrived on the scene and knocked several of the villains away, and grabbed Bakugo as he tossed him into the air, where Gran Torino grabbed him and sped off. Now, Halo stood in the middle of all of the villains as he looked at Shigaraki. "Hello, Shigaraki, care for a dance?" Izuku asked with a chuckle, and Shigaraki grinned as he got ready to fight, but it seems their fight wasn't destined, as they heard rubble break behind the villains, and when Izuku looked he saw students from Wano located there. Izuku stood there in shock at what he was seeing. Why the hell are they? Oh no. They didn't, Izuku thought as he realized Momoye Arazu had the ability to make the tracker once again to find this location. This meant that the students of Wano had come to save Bakugo Katsuki, and that thought annoyed him for multiple reasons. 1. Why the hell would they come to a place where they knew was going to be turned into a battle when they don't have provisional license? 2. They really came to save Bakugo of all people. Lastly, 3. They were risking their lives and all of the heroes by being there, since they now needed to be protected and escorted off-site. Izuku knew Shigaraki saw them, as the man had a huge grin on his face and spoke. "You can either fight me and my members kill them, or save them and let us go. Your choice," Shigaraki asked, and Izuku looked at the man and spoke. "Our fight gets delayed one more time it seems, Shigaraki. No matter. The fight between the titans happened no matter what. We are fated to clash, so until next time, Shigaraki," Izuku said as he bounced away and headed towards the students, while Shigaraki and his members left via the portal. The students who were hiding behind the portal were stunned in fear at seeing a villain capable of handling All Might. They were also stunned when Bakugo had gotten rescued so easily and realized they screwed up by coming, since now they were in danger. As they started to move away, Kirishimiya knocked some rubble over, and that caught the attention of the League members and Halo as they all looked at them. They could hear the conversation that Halo and the League were having and realized that they were going to be the cause of the League escaping, and that thought ate them all alive. Halo appeared right next to them due to his incredible speed, and they could see it in his eyes that he was pissed. "We need to get you out of here now, or else you will die in the fight," Halo said, and forced them forward and out of the fighting area as he watched the League of Villains go through the portal. Soon he escorted them towards a police line and told the police to ensure they got to wherever Bakugo Katsuki was taken to, since they would need to be questioned by UA and others later. God, they are really filled with the so-called potential now, aren't they, Eraserhead? Izuku thought a bit bitterly as he rushed back to the fight and put it out of his mind, since he had no more time to think about them and how big they screwed up, since he couldn't stop the League of Villains from escaping. Izuku arrived back at the fight to watch his master and father be forced to take a massive attack from All for One, or let the civilian behind him die due to the attack. The attack was massive, and All Might was forced back, but when the dust settled, Izuku's worst fears came true as his father's true form was revealed to the world to see. Everything went quiet as the world was in shock at seeing All Might's form. Even Bakugo and the UA students who were standing together now were in shock as they looked at the TV on the building near them. Back at UA, Nezu had dropped his teacup and it shattered on the ground. Eraserhead and Vlad King were stiff and freaking out at the fact that All Might's form was revealed and that it looked as if All Might was finished. As they were all silent, All for One spoke up as he began to mock All Might as he revealed the truth that Tamura Shigaraki was Tenko Shimura, the grandson of Nana Shimura. All Might's face dropped from a smile and into shock as he heard that. All for One was enjoying the facial expression that All Might now held and prepared his next attack as everyone was calling out for him to keep fighting on and to stand up again. However, All Might couldn't buff back up, and All for One saw this. Goodbye, All Might. It seems it's time for you to die, All for One said as he powered up another attack and prepared to throw it, but before he could, he was stopped as Halo came slamming into his head and kicked him away into the distance. I won't let you kill my master, Izuku yelled out, and everyone was stunned. All Might looked afraid though, afraid to witness his son's death just as he witnessed his master's. All for One though shrugged the attack off for the most part and looked at Halo. Though, the student has come to save the master. Though it was a foolish mistake, since I will kill you here and end the line of heroes that have plagued me, All for One said, and you could tell by the tone of his voice he was smirking. Izuku could feel the fear overtake him at the ancient man that stood before him, and then he felt a hand on his shoulder as All Might stood up as everyone cheered for Halo and All Might. All Might, Izuku said in a sorrowful tone, and All Might smiled at him though and said it would all be alright. Izuku nodded his head and asked if he still had anything left of his quirk, and All Might nodded his head. I need a chance to land my largest blow possible. If it doesn't stop him, then Gran Torino will be removing you from the fight and flee. So I need you to create a distraction for me so I can land the blow without him blocking it. Can you do that for me? All Might asked, and Izuku nodded his head and spoke. Anything for you, Dad, Izuku said, and charged off at All for One filled with determination as everyone watching was on the edge of their seats. All for One was thrilled at the chance to kill one for all off for good, and he decided to take it. All for One powered up his attack and swung at Halo, who dodged due to his superior speed in close combat, unlike All Might, who had overall better speed in the long run. Izuku Midoriya had speed in turning on the dime. As such, he was able to dodge the attack quite easily and land a few blows, but they didn't do much damage at all due to Izuku lacking in overall offensive power against such a giant powerhouse that All for One was. Interesting. Give it another year or so and you could pose a threat to my life. It would do me quite well to snuff you out here, All for One said as he turned to attack Izuku. However, the ancient evil made a critical mistake, thinking that All Might was completely done for due to losing his buff form. No, instead, All Might was waiting for his chance to strike, and soon he would get it. All for One launched attack after attack trying to kill Halo, who kept dodging like crazy while Halo would land a blow or two every so often, but All for One finally landed the successful blow and knocked Halo down onto the ground, where he made his way and stood above him. I must congratulate you on withstanding me for so long, but this ends here, All for One said as he pulled back his punch, and Izuku smirked as his mouth guard fell off. Indeed, this ends here, Izuku yelled as he pushed himself off the ground suddenly and kicked All for One's arm off to the side, and as All for One jerked to the side a bit, he saw it. He saw All Might, who he had forgotten about in his desire to end one for all, was right in front of him with his arm pulled back with all of his power stored in it. No, All for One yelled out as All Might slugged forward, landing the final blow as he called out his move. United States of Smash. All Might yelled out as he slammed All for One's head into the ground, as Izuku had provided a perfect opportunity for All Might to land the final blow. The moment the body of All for One connected with the ground, a large tornado picked up, throwing rubble and parts of building up into the air as the land was cleared. The blow was so powerful that it had created an entire area clear of any rubble at all, with an impact zone in the middle of it. The dust had cleared up, and the news cameras from the helicopters got a better view of where All Might was, and they could see the villain on the ground with All Might standing above him. They also saw Halo make his way back to where All Might was, since he had gotten a bit blown away. All Might saw Izuku back with him, and he grabbed his hand as he buffed up and raised their hands into the air. The entirety of Japan and those on site went crazy as All Might and Halo had won. They did it. All MJ and Halo did it. They defeated the villain and are now standing in victory, said the news reporter in the helicopter. Everyone was cheering their names, and soon other heroes and police started to flood the area looking for injured people, and the police detained All for One into equipment so he wouldn't escape, but All Might was honestly doubtful the man could try to escape for a while in his injured state. Soon All Might dropped down to his skinny form as he could no longer hold it, as one for all was more or less gone now. All Might looked at Izuku and smiled as he realized they had finally done it. They defeated All for One finally. His master was finally revenged, and so were all of the past holders. It's good that he has gone now, but the league escaped due to UA students. I had to abandon my attempt to capture them since a handful of UA students were here attempting to rescue Bakugo. I don't like the fact that they are out there, or the fact that we don't know how stronger Shigaraki can become in the future now that we have zero ideas where they have gone," Izuku said to the side of All Might. All Might was stunned to learn of the UA students that were present and were quite frankly annoyed with Wannabe now with all of the stunts they have pulled. "We can deal with the UA students later, but in regards to the league, I don't know how strong they will become, but with my retirement now happening, the world is about to become chaotic in the near future. I am sorry to drop all of this onto you," All Might said as he noticed the news cameras in the distance that were surely waiting to capture Izuku's appearance since his mouth guard got broken, which would reveal most of his face the moment All Might turned his body. "It's okay. I've warned my class of the coming future and they have been training harder. I dare say they can take on most second years and a few third years most likely. Anyway, ready for the media because you know we are escaping without answering some questions, and it's about time a face is put to Halo since I can't hide it anymore," Izuku asked, and All Might nodded his head, and Izuku followed right behind All Might as they approached the cameras. The media was without a doubt trying to get an image of Izuku, and they would get it as the two of them arrived at the cameras. "All Might, Halo, will you please answer some questions for us?" asked a reporter, and All Might nodded his head as he took a step to the left and revealed Halo, who no longer had his mouth guard on since it was hanging half broken on his suit, nor was he wearing his hair covering so everyone could see his green hair. Izuku smiled his million-watt smile and waved at the cameras. "Hello, Japan. I am the hero of resilience, Halo," Izuku greeted, and everyone started to shout out questions. Izuku pointed towards a lady that was a bit meeker and quiet and asked her what her question was. "Halo, everyone has been wondering what hero school you attend since it seems All Might and you have gone to lengths to hide that information," asked the reporter, and Izuku nodded his head. "Indeed, we did go to lengths to hide that information. We were concerned about villains aiming for my head if they knew about my face, but I've grown much stronger recently that we no longer have worries about most people that would have grudges against All Might that wished to take it out on me. As such, I am no longer concerned with hiding my face anymore. In regards to hero schools, I attend Shiksu High School, where I gained my provisional hero license alongside one of my classmates during my first semester due to my strength and overall abilities," Izuku said, and the reporters were set into a frenzy as they started to ask questions. With that, I hope you enjoyed this long video. And don't forget to support us by leaving a like and subscribing, and don't forget to take care of yourself because we care about you, and don't forget to spend the time with your loved people, and see you next time. Bye bye.